Bella and Jacob are in a relationship for more than 5 years. Bella was trying to prevent herself becoming pregnant. She took contraception for 5 years. Then all of a sudden, she hit the circumstance when she changed her mind. She is ready to have a baby. It took about 6 months to come off contraception before she could see her doctor. The doctor told her to give it another 6 months and come back if nothing happened. 6 months came and went, and in all the time, nothing happened. When they realized that it wasn't happening for them, they came away from the appointment with some general advice and tests. The doctor said that the shape of Bella's uterus makes it hard for a fertilized egg to implant, and Jacob is having an undescended testicle. Here is some information on how this situation is possible. Whenever we hear the word reproductive system, the first thing that comes to our mind is a collection of internal and external organs in both males and females that work together for the purpose of procreating, and indeed, it is. The reproductive system is a collection of organs and a network of hormone production that work together to create life. And now, let's begin with the male reproductive system. The primary reproductive organ of the male are the paired testes, which have both an exocrine, sperm-producing function, and an endocrine, testosterone-producing function. The testes, or testicles, are a pair of sperm-producing organs that maintain the health of the male reproductive system. The testes are also known as gonads. The testes are located within the scrotum, with the epididymis situated on the posterolateral aspect of each testicle. It is connected to the trunk via the spermatic cord, a connective tissue sheath that encloses blood vessels, nerves, and the ductus deferens. Each ball-sized testis is approximately 4 cm long and 2.5 cm wide. Aside from sperm production, the testes are also responsible for making testosterone, the primary male sex hormone. In contrast, or relating to Jacob's situation or condition, who has an undescended testicle, which is also called cryptorchidism, it is a condition wherein the testicle has not moved down into the scrotum. It means that either one or both testicles are missing from the scrotum and are situated in the groin or inside the lower abdomen. About 5% of all boys are born with this condition. So how much does it affect fertility? How much does it affect Bella and Jacob's desire of conceiving a baby? Men with one undescended testicle can still have children, but their fertility is lower than normal, by roughly half. If they have surgery to correct it, especially when younger, their fertility is about the same as if they never had a problem. Moving on, let's have the duct system. Sperm cells pass through a series of ducts to reach the outside of the body. After they leave the testis, the sperm passes through the epididymis, ductus deferens, ejaculatory duct, and urethra. The epididymis is a highly convoluted duct behind the testis. It transports sperm from the reed testis to the vas deferens. Each epididymis measures 6 meters long. It is a tightly coiled tube, comma-shaped organ located along the superior and posterior margins of the testis. Another duct system is the ductus deferens, or also known as vas deferens, in which it extends from the epididymis into the abdominal cavity, through the inguinal canal, over and down behind the urinary bladder to join the ejaculatory duct. The sperm are stored in the proximal portion of the ductus deferens, near the epididymis, and peristaltic movement propel the sperm through the tube. The next duct, which receives sperm from the vas deferens, is the ejaculatory duct. This duct delivers sperm to the urethra. Each ejaculatory duct passes through the prostate gland and empties into the urethra. Lastly, the urethra, which extends from the urinary bladder to the external urethral orifice at the tip of the penis. It is a passageway for sperm and fluids from the reproductive system and urine from the urinary system. While reproductive fluids are passing through the urethra, sphincters contract tightly to keep urine from entering the urethra. And now, let's jump right through the accessory glands and semen. These so-called accessory reproductive glands add seminal fluid to semen. This fluid is produced during ejaculation by accessory glands, namely the seminal vesicle, the prostate, and the bulbourethral glands. The seminal vesicles are also known as the vesicular or seminal glands. These vesicles are posterior to the urinary bladder. Their secretion contains fructose to provide an energy source for sperm and alkaline to enhance sperm motility. The duct of each seminal vesicle joins the ductus deferens on that side to form the ejaculatory duct. It is a muscular gland just below the urinary bladder. Prostate surrounds the first inch of the urethra as it emerges from the bladder. The prostate's primary function is to produce the fluid that nourishes and transports sperm, the seminal fluid. Another accessory reproductive glands are the bulbourethral glands. The bulbourethral glands are about the size of peas and are located below the prostate gland. They empty into the urethra. Each of these glands is made of several connected glandular lobules. Their alkaline secretion coats the interior of the urethra just before ejaculation, which neutralizes any acidic urine that might be present. Semen consists of sperm and the secretions of the seminal vesicle, prostate gland, and the vulvourethral glands. Its average pH is about 7.4. During ejaculation, approximately 2 to 4 ml of semen is expelled. Each milliliter of semen contains about 100 million sperm cells. So now, we will proceed to the male's external genitals, in which it involves the scrotum and the penis. The scrotum is a divided sac of skin with sparse hair that hangs outside the abdominal cavity, between the legs at the root of the penis. Under normal conditions, the scrotum hangs loosely from its attachment, providing the testis with a temperature that is below body temperature. This picture shows the relative position of the spermatogonia in the wall of the seminiferous tubule. Although the stem cells and the primary spermatocytes have the same number of chromosomes, 46 designated as 2N, as other body cells, the products of meiosis, spermatids, and sperm have only half as many, 23 designated as N. Sperm production or spermatogenesis begins during puberty and continues throughout life. A man makes millions of sperm daily. Sperms are formed in the seminiferous tubules of the testes. As noted earlier, spermatogonia are the germline cells. They are diploid. They undergo mitosis to reproduce themselves. One of the spermatogonia undergoes meiosis, and it is called a primary spermatocyte. It is diploid. The primary spermatocyte undergoes meiosis 1 to produce 2 secondary spermatocytes. These are now haploid, but still contain 2 chromatids per chromosome. Each of the secondary spermatocytes undergoes meiosis 2 to each produce 2 spermatids. Spermatids are haploid and each contain 1 chromosome that was previously chromatid. The result is 4 total spermatids. Spermatids mature into the sperm we know, and these sperm are called spermatozoa. They are then ready to leave the body and fertilize an egg. Sexual life cycles involve an alternation between meiosis and fertilization. Meiosis is where a diploid cell gives rise to haploid cells. Fertilization is where 2 haploid cells fuse to form a diploid zygote. You must be wondering if meiosis is important for fertilization. Yes, it is important. Meiosis creates cells that are destined to become gametes, or reproductive cells. This reduction in chromosome number is critical. Without it, the union of 2 gametes during fertilization would result in offspring, with twice the normal number of chromosomes. Now let's talk about the sperm. Sperm usually consists of 2 morphologically and functionally distinct regions, enclosed by a single plasma membrane. The middle piece is packed with mitochondria to release energy needed to swim and fertilize the egg. The tail, which propels the sperm to the egg and helps it to burrow through the egg coat, and the head, which contains a condensed haploid nucleus. In addition, here is the process of testosterone production. The hypothalamus releases gonadotropin-releasing hormone. GnRH, or gonadotropin-releasing hormone, stimulates the anterior pituitary to release gonadotropins, FHS, or follicle-stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone, or LH. Follicle-stimulating hormone stimulates spermatogonia to produce sperm. Luteinizing hormone stimulates the interstitial cells to release testosterone, which serves as the final trigger for spermatogenesis. Testosterone then enhances spermatogenesis. The rising level of testosterone exerts negative feedback control on the hypothalamus and pituitary. At last, a woman's role in the world is not easy. She has hormonal imbalances, period pains, and she also gives birth to a child, and that's why it's hard to feel woman. So, shall we start discussing? The female reproductive system provides several functions. The ovaries produce the egg cells called the ova or oocytes. The oocytes are then transported to the fallopian tube, where fertilization by a sperm may occur. Imagine that the female reproductive system is much more complex than the male reproductive system. Not only must she produce the female gametes, but her body must also nurture and protect a developing fetus during 9 months of pregnancy. Ovaries are the primary female reproductive organs. The ovaries are the female pelvic reproductive organs that houses the ova and are also responsible for the production of sex hormones. They are paired organs located on either side of the uterus within the broad ligament below the uterine fallopian tubes. The paired ovaries are pretty much the shape of almonds, but are nearly twice as large. An internal view of an ovary reveals many tiny sac-like structures called ovarian follicles. The internal genitalia include a 3-part system of ducts: the uterine tubes, the uterus, and the vagina. This system of ducts connects the ovaries, the primary reproductive organ. The ovaries produce egg cells and release them for fertilization. The uterine tubes, also known as oviducts or fallopian tube, form the initial part of the duct system. It is the female structures that transport the ova from the ovary to the uterus each month. In the presence of sperm and fertilization, the uterine tubes transport the fertilized egg to the uterus for implantation. It is a hollow muscular organ located in the female pelvis between the bladder and the rectum. The ovaries produce the eggs that travels through the fallopian tubes. Once the egg has left the ovary, it can be fertilized and implant itself in the lining of the uterus. Lastly, vagina. The vagina is a thin walled tube 8 to 10 centimeters long, which lies between the bladder and rectum and extends from the cervix to the body exterior, often called the birth canal. The vagina provides a passageway for the delivery of an infant and for the menstrual flow to leave the body. Because it receives the penis and semen during sexual intercourse, it is the female organ of copulation. The female reproductive structures that are located external to the vagina are the external genitalia. The external genitalia, also called the vulva, include the mons pubis, labia, clitoris, urethral and vaginal orifices, and greater vestibular glands. The mons pubis consists of a mass of subcutaneous adipose tissue anterior to the pubic symphysis and bears most of the pubic hair. The labia majora are a pair of thick folds of skin and adipose tissue found inferior to the mons. Found medial to the labia majora are the labia minora, which are much thinner, devoid of fat and entirely hairless. Their frontal ends split form upper and lower layers. The clitoris is an erectile structure, homologue to the male penis, located inferior to the mons pubis at the interior end of the vulva. Similar to penis, it is composed of paired dura, a body and glands. The labia majora encloses a region called vestibule, which contains the external openings of the urethra. Arcilles glands are the B-sides, with a short duct that opens into vestibule or lower vagina. One is found on each side of the vagina. The total supply of eggs that a female can release is already determined by the time she is born. In addition, a female's reproductive ability begins during puberty, heralded by the beginning of her menstruation cycle, or the menstrual cycle, and usually ends in her 50s. The period in which a woman's reproductive capability ends is called menopause. Oogenesis in the human female reproductive system, growth process in which the primary egg cell, or ovum, becomes a mature ovum. In any one human generation, the egg's development starts before the female that carries it even born. 8 to 20 weeks after the fetus has started to grow, cells that are to become mature ova have been multiplied, and by the time the female is born, all of the egg cells that the ovaries will release during the active reproductive years of the female are already present in the ovaries. These cells, known as the primary ova, number around 400,000. The primary ova remain dormant until just prior to ovulation. When an egg is released from the ovary, some egg cells may not mature for 40 years. Follicle-stimulating hormone stimulates the ovarian follicle, causing an egg to grow. It also triggers the production of estrogen in the follicle. The larger cell is a secondary oocyte, and the other tiny cell is a polar body. By the time a follicle has ripened to the mature vesicular follicle stage, it contains a secondary oocyte and protrudes from the external surface of the ovary. Follicle development to this stage takes about 14 days, and ovulation of the second oocyte occurs at just about the time in response to the burst-like release of a second interior pituitary hormone. As the ovaries become active at puberty and starts to produce oocytes, they also begin to produce ovarian hormones. The follicle cells of the growing and mature follicles produce estrogens, which cause the appearance of secondary sex characteristics in the young woman. These changes include the following. Estrogen also has metabolic effects. For example, it helps maintain low total blood cholesterol levels and facilitates calcium ion uptake, which sustains bone density. The young embryo implants and develops in the uterus. This organ is receptive to implantation only for a very short period each month. Not surprisingly, this brief interval coincides exactly with the time when fertilized egg would begin to implant, approximately 7 days after ovulation. It is important to understand how these hormonal pieces fit together. Generally speaking, both female cycles, the ovarian and the uterine cycles, are about 28 days long. Ovulation typically occurs midway in the cycles, on or about day 14. The menstrual cycle is divided into 3 stages, which are as follows. If fertilization does not occur, the corpus luteum begins to degenerate toward the end of this period as the luteinizing hormone blood level declines. Although this explanation assumes the classic 28-day cycles, the length of menstrual cycle is quite variable. It can be as short as 21 days or as long as 40 days. Only one interval is fairly constant in all females. The time from ovulation to the beginning of menses is almost always 14 to 15 days. Breasts are essential to starting life. To know more about its feature and physiology, let us begin first with the mammary glands. It is a gland that is located in the breast. and the biological role of the mammary gland is to produce milk to nourish a newborn baby. Each mammary gland is contained within a round skin-covered breast anterior to the pectoral muscles. Surrounding a center protruding nipple is the areola. Around the nipple, each mammary gland consists of 15 to 25 lobes. Smaller chambers are called lobules, which contains alveolar glands that produces milk when women are lucky. But beyond all this, certain cancer may occur. Moving on, there was once a time that we were taught about the birds and the bees. During this process, pregnancies may occur and development of embryo starts. Pregnancy. It refers to the event that occurs from the time of fertilization until birth. Embryonic development refers to the changes that take place as an embryo matures during fertilization and implantation. After that process, human fetus development occurs, in which is the gestation period. Gestation period is the developing stage or development occurs from fertilization through week 8. The embryonic period, the conceptus, is called an embryo, and from week 9 through birth. The fetal period, the conceptus, is called fetus. Here are other terms to ponder about. During pregnancy, certain changes occur with the mother, such as for the anatomical change. After pregnancy, childbirth occurs, where there are stages of labor in which are common divided into 3 stages. First is dilation stage. It is the time from the appearance of true contractions until the cervix is fully dilated by the baby's head. Second is stage 2, expulsion stage. It is the period from full dilation to the delivery of the infant. In this stage, the infant passes through the cervix and vagina to the outside of the body. And lastly, stage 3. The placental stage, or the delivery of the placenta, is usually accomplished within 15 minutes after the birth of the infant. There are also developmental aspects present in the reproductive system which serves a great deal for importance of the presence or absence of testosterone during embryonic development of the reproductive system organs. In different stage, embryonic reproductive structures of the male and females are identical. After the gonads have formed, development of the accessory structures and external genitalia begins. Whether male or female structures will form depends entirely on whether testosterone is present or absent. If testosterone is present, the usual case is that, once formed, the embryonic testes produce testosterone, and the development of the male duct system and external genitalia follow. The testosterone is not present when testosterone is not produced, as is the case in female embryos that forms ovaries. The female ducts and external genitalia results. Other terms to ponder are menarche and menopause. As the world runs and humans age accordingly, there are reproductive system problems that are present in both adult and aging men and women. That's all, folks. Until then, keep on learning and tune in for future health teas with us. Stay safe.